While joking around, he took one comment about being a weakling a bit too seriously, so he stood up and did this. Hey Reddit, this is my first time posting here, and honestly, I really need some advice. I'm in a tough spot right now, and I'm feeling so confused. I called my husband a wimp, and ever since, he's completely changed. He's no longer the loving, kind man I married, and I'm really worried about him. I'm asking for advice because I'm unsure how to handle this situation. My name's Chloe, and I'm 27 years old. My husband's name is Theo, and he's 29. We've been married for about 2 years, and we met on a dating app. We don't have kids yet because we plan to wait until we're in our 30s. Theo and I have always had a great relationship, very playful, very understanding, the kind where we could tease each other and laugh it off. It was always lighthearted fun, until that one night. Theo and I have always had a wonderful connection. He's amazing because he'd always go out of his way for me. He's the type of partner who would do anything for his significant other. He always gave his best in every aspect of our relationship. One thing that stood out about him was his romantic gestures. He would plan surprises, outings, and all sorts of special activities that made our time together truly magical. I remember one Valentine's Day when he surprised me with a weekend getaway to a cozy cabin in the woods. He had everything planned out, from our arrival to the activities we do together. It was such a thoughtful and romantic gesture that made me fall in love with him even more. But Theo didn't just stop at big gestures. He was also mindful of the small things. He'd leave me sweet notes around the house, cook my favorite meals on random weekdays, and always made sure to listen when I needed to talk. His thoughtfulness and dedication were what made our bond so strong. I felt cherished and loved, and I knew he'd always go above and beyond to make me happy. That's why it's so confusing for me to see him act this way over a harmless joke. It feels like he's a completely different person, and I can't understand why. Theo was a great guy, no doubt about it. He always went the extra mile to make me feel special, which was awesome, but sometimes he could be a bit too much. He was incredibly nice, almost to the point where it could get overwhelming. He'd stick to me like glue, and while it was sweet at times, it felt suffocating. I don't like using terms like simp or wimp, but let's just say Theo could sometimes be a bit of a pushover and overly cautious. He'd do anything to make me happy, even if it meant sacrificing his own needs. At first, that behavior was endearing, but over time, it became exhausting. Outside of work, Theo lacked confidence. He'd second-guess himself a lot and always needed reassurance before making decisions. Even in private moments, he'd be overly careful, trying to make sure everything was perfect, which could get annoying. I wanted him to be a little more assertive, especially in our personal life. I didn't want him to change entirely, just find a balance. But the problem is, Theo's constant care and effort to please me started to make me lose respect for him without realizing it. I began ignoring his needs and assumed he'd always put me first because he rarely stood up for himself. I started brushing off his opinions, thinking they didn't matter, and I felt like I had more control, which was unfair to him. I saw that I was starting to take advantage of his kindness. I wasn't valuing his feelings or what he wanted, assuming he'd just go along with whatever I said. That wasn't the right way to treat him or our relationship. I stopped doing my part around the house, leaving all the chores to Theo, even after he worked long hours. Then, out of the blue, I quit my job and expected Theo to cover all the bills without discussing it with him first. When he raised concerns and suggested I find work or contribute in some way, I dismissed him and refused to listen. I became stubborn and ignored the strain I was putting on him. It was really unfair to Theo. Our relationship hit a rough patch, and we started drifting apart. I began seeing Theo as too soft and accommodating, like he couldn't stand up for himself. It irritated me so much that it led to a growing resentment towards him. I couldn't shake the frustration, and it felt like we were growing further apart each day. As time went on, I found myself getting more and more fed up with Theo. Every little thing he did, whether it was trying to be kind or just going about his day, grated on my nerves. His attempts to fix things felt shallow, like he was just going through the motions without really understanding what was wrong. I started avoiding him whenever I could. Being around him felt like being trapped in a cage with someone I couldn't stand. It was easier to stay away and distract myself elsewhere than to face the mounting issues between us. Our arguments became more frequent, and each one left me feeling angrier and more resentful. I blamed him for everything, even though I knew I had my own flaws in how I handled things. But confronting my own shortcomings was too difficult, so I just kept blaming him. Our home became a battlefield, with tension hanging in the air all the time. I resented him for not being stronger, for not standing up to me, or pushing back against my behavior. It felt like I was the only one trying to keep things together, and it was exhausting. Theo's attempts to repair our relationship felt superficial, like putting a band-aid on a deep wound. I wanted real change, but I wasn't sure if I could get that from him. Theo was just plain confused and trying his best to fix things between us, but it felt like I was hitting a wall. I couldn't shake the growing resentment I felt toward him, all because I saw him as spineless. Every time he came to me, pouring his heart out and promising to do better, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. It felt like empty words, like he was saying what he thought I wanted to hear without truly understanding what was wrong. Instead of appreciating his efforts to make things right, I found myself getting angrier. I wanted a partner who could stand up for himself, challenge me, and be strong. But Theo always seemed to fold under pressure. It made me lose respect for him, and I started seeing him as weak. No matter how hard Theo tried to fix things, I kept pushing him away. I was stuck in this loop of blaming him for everything and refusing to see my own faults in our messed up relationship. Theo was genuinely bewildered and doing his best, but I couldn't shake off my anger. It felt as if I was trapped in an endless loop of resentment and disillusionment, and it was slowly pulling us apart. A week ago, Theo truly went all in. He arranged this incredible dinner date at home, cooked a feast, and did everything to make it memorable. Even though I still held some bitterness toward him, I couldn't ignore the effort he made. During dinner, something shifted. Perhaps it was Theo's effort, or maybe it was simply the atmosphere, but we began talking and laughing like we used to. Jokes were flying, and we reminisced about all the things we wanted to do but never managed to. That's when I mentioned skydiving, something I had tried before and really enjoyed. It was my way of opening up and sharing a part of myself with Theo. But when Theo admitted he'd be too anxious to try skydiving, my teasing side took over, and I jokingly, and a bit disdainfully, called him a coward. After I mocked Theo for being a coward, I noticed his smile fade, and he let out a forced laugh. The mood at dinner quickly shifted from fun to awkward. We finished our meal, but it felt as though there was an invisible barrier between us. I attempted to engage in conversation as usual, but he seemed detached and uninterested. After that dinner incident, Theo's attitude underwent a complete reversal. It was as if he shut down, became emotionally distant, and completely checked out. All the effort he had been putting into salvaging our relationship vanished overnight. He became aloof, almost as if he had built a fortress around himself. Suddenly, he stopped making any effort. The romantic gestures, the surprises, everything ceased. Around the house, he became obstinate. If I didn't take the initiative, neither would he. It turned into a standoff with no communication. It felt like he was mimicking my actions, but not in a helpful way. It was as though we were in a standoff where neither of us was willing to move. I tried discussing it with him, but he would either dismiss it or provide brief, curt responses. It was frustrating because I couldn't understand how one harmless joke could lead to such a drastic change in him. It felt like I was walking on eggshells, afraid that one wrong move would drive him even further away. As time passed, Theo's behavior kept worsening. Gone was the guy who used to go out of his way to make me happy. Instead, he became distant and indifferent. It was like living with a stranger in the same house. The turning point came when he began suggesting that I get a job. He pointed out that it didn't make sense for me to stay at home all day, especially since we didn't have children. To him, it wasn't fair for him to be covering all the bills while I did nothing. Initially, I was taken aback by his words. I felt as though he was attacking my decisions, as if he couldn't understand why I had left my job in the first place. It felt like a slap in the face, especially coming from someone who had once been so supportive and understanding. I tried to explain my reasons, but he wouldn't listen. It was like talking to a brick wall. He had become so fixated on the idea that I needed to contribute financially that he couldn't see beyond it. We started arguing frequently, and the tension in the house escalated. I felt misunderstood and unappreciated. It was as though everything I had done for our relationship no longer mattered. I'm trying to figure out why he's behaving this way and how we can fix things together. I don't understand why he's taking it so seriously. It was just a joke, and I never intended to hurt his feelings. Now he's withdrawn, and there's this tension between us that I've never experienced before. I miss the playful banter and the laughter we once shared. I miss the Theo who used to brighten my days with his surprises and affection. I want to find a way to reconnect with that side of him and restore the joy and love we once had. I need advice on how to approach Theo and discuss this with him. I want to understand why my harmless joke has had such a profound impact on him and how we can go back to being the happy couple we used to be. If anyone has any advice or similar experiences, I would greatly appreciate hearing them. Thank you for reading. Update. Hey Reddit. I didn't expect such a backlash from my post. I knew it was a sensitive topic, but the level of criticism caught me off guard. Many comments have labeled me as out of touch and inconsiderate, accusing me of being lazy and at fault. Let me clarify a few things. First, despite my frustrations expressed in the post, I still love my husband. I use strong language out of irritation, not genuine animosity. Second, I'm not lazy or inconsiderate. I fully understand Theo's perspective in our situation. Some have asked why I haven't taken a job. The truth is, I feel limited in a traditional job, and financially, Theo's income is enough to cover our needs comfortably. I appreciate the advice offered, but I want to make it clear that divorce is not an option for us. Theo and I share a strong connection, and we've been together for years, and despite the current challenges, we are compatible. I hope this helps clarify things a little. Thanks to those who provided constructive advice. Update. Hey Reddit, I'm facing a tough situation and could really use some advice. Tonight, Theo confronted me after discovering from a friend that I cheated on him years ago when we were still dating. I deeply regret my actions from that time, and the friend who revealed this information to Theo did so out of guilt after all these years. Theo's reaction has been intense. He's understandably angry. He said things that really hurt, calling me not just a cheater, but a liar. He expressed that had he known about this earlier, he wouldn't have continued with our relationship and marriage. He told me he can't forgive me and wants me out by tomorrow morning. This is all happening so quickly, and I feel both terrified and angry. I can't be homeless, and I don't want to leave my husband. What should I do? I'm reaching out for any advice or ideas on how to handle this conversation with Theo. Any help would be deeply appreciated. Update. Hey Reddit, the hate train is still going strong, but I'm not letting it get to me. It's interesting to see how people express themselves, even if it's through hostility. I've come across my posts on platforms like TikTok and Reddit, and let's just say the comments haven't been kind. But hey, everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? I have thick skin, so this kind of negativity doesn't bother me much. I've experienced enough of it, but now let's get to the real update. It seems like many of you are curious about how my life is unfolding. After our confrontation, my husband kicked me out the morning following it. He seemed more composed, but that didn't lead to forgiveness. Instead, he voiced his heartbreak and made it clear he couldn't forgive me. Essentially, he asked me to let him go. We had a conversation, and I pleaded for another chance, but in the end, he insisted I leave. So here I am, staying at a friend's house, typing this update. My life has taken a rapid downturn. I'm without a steady income, and to make matters worse, Theo blocked me and drained our joint account. I'm in a difficult situation, jobless and penniless. Any advice or support would be really appreciated right now. Hey Reddit, I see the hate is still strong, but there are a few positive comments standing out amidst the negativity. I wish I could bring you some good news, but unfortunately, that's not the case. My husband still hasn't unblocked me, so any attempts to reach out to him are futile. As for my living situation, I'm still staying at my friend's place, but she's made it clear that I need to find a new arrangement soon since she can't host me indefinitely. The job search isn't going well either. I'm currently unemployed, and the thought of having to look for a job soon is overwhelming. Life is pretty tough right now, but I noticed many of you asking for updates, so here's one, even though there's not much to report at the moment. Hey Reddit, just a quick update. First, I want to address a question I've been getting a lot. Yes, I immediately cut off the friend who told Theo about my past cheating, and I distanced myself from everyone who supported her. I didn't have many friends to begin with, so my social circle has shrunk significantly. That's probably for the best, since they claimed to be my friends, but didn't offer any help when I needed it. On a brighter note, I have a job interview scheduled for tomorrow. It's a step forward, and I'm hopeful. Your support means a lot, so thank you for reading, and wish me luck. Hey Reddit, it's me again, posting despite the ongoing negativity because why not? Unfortunately, I don't have much good news to share. It feels like nothing is going right. First, I didn't get the job I interviewed for, which was incredibly frustrating. I put in the effort and went through the process, but sometimes things just don't work out. Secondly, my friend kicked me out of her place. She felt I had overstayed my welcome, and despite my protests, I had no choice but to leave. It was a tough blow, especially since I had nowhere else to turn. I ended up at my parents' house, which I had hoped to avoid. There's some bad history between us from my childhood, and it's clear that they still hold resentment. It's only been 2 days, and I'm already feeling like I'm losing my sanity. They constantly bring up past issues, and it's hard to be here. On a slightly brighter note, Theo unblocked me and reached out. It's a small positive amidst everything else going wrong. Maybe there's hope for forgiveness, so I can go home again. Hey Reddit, thanks for the support I've been receiving here, no matter how small. It's also interesting to note that the hate train is still going strong. Here's an update from my end. Firstly, as I mentioned, Theo unblocked me, but it wasn't for good news. He informed me he wants a divorce, and that hit me hard. It's not something I wanted to hear. I thought he would forgive me, but I guess I was wrong. Secondly, I'm still struggling to find a job, and I'm stuck at my parents' place. The pressure is mounting, especially with them constantly criticizing me. They believe Theo shouldn't divorce me and want to intervene, but I feel like his decision is final. My parents aren't listening to my perspective, and they're blaming me for the divorce. It's hurtful and exhausting to deal with their constant criticism. Even my siblings seem to be siding with them, which only adds to my emotional burden. To make matters worse, my in-laws reached out, but instead of offering support or asking for my side of the story, they just blamed and insulted me. It's disheartening to feel like I have no one in my corner, especially when even my friends haven't reached out during this difficult time. Thanks for reading and for any advice or support you can offer. Hey Reddit, here's a quick update since many of you were asking. My parents tried talking to Theo, but he wasn't receptive. They went to his place, he reluctantly let them in, and the conversation didn't go anywhere. Theo made it clear that he was done with me. That's the end of the story. My parents left feeling defeated, and I felt embarrassed about the whole situation. They're still blaming me, which adds insult to injury, especially since I warned them it would be tough. It's been rough, to be honest. Thanks for reading and caring, though. Hey Reddit, just a quick update because things have been really tough lately. It feels like everything is happening at once, and I'm just exhausted. My parents are still on my case, pushing me to find a job and contribute financially or leave. Today, I got served divorce papers, and it hit me hard. I couldn't hold back the tears. I miss my husband terribly, and in a moment of desperation, I called him, pouring my heart out, but he hung up on me. It's incredible how one careless word said in jest has spiraled into all this chaos. Hey Reddit, it's been a while since my last update. I wanted to wait until things settled down before sharing a final update. I might have overused Reddit as a sounding board, haha. Anyway, here's what's been happening since then. First off, the divorce is officially finalized. Surprisingly, I was awarded alimony. Although it's not much, it helped me secure a place with a roommate, which has been a relief from the toxic environment at my parents' house. The judge considered my past mistake of cheating, but since it happened before the marriage and years ago, it wasn't a significant factor in the decision. As expected, My parents weren't thrilled when they found out I was moving out instead of staying and paying them rent. It was a tricky situation because staying and paying rent to them didn't make sense, especially since they also expected me to care for their needs. I tried reasoning with them and asked if they could reduce the rent given my situation, but they flat out refused. That's when I realized it was time for me to leave. Their anger and refusal to compromise only intensified the tension, but I knew I had to prioritize my own well being. Leaving did strain our relationship further. They didn't talk to me for a while, but I had to focus on my own needs and financial stability. Sometimes tough decisions are necessary for personal growth and independence. Secondly, I've landed a job. It's not the dream job by any means. It's low paying and demanding, but it's a start. I'm hoping to find something better eventually, but for now, it's helping me get back on my feet. Oh, and remember how I mentioned my friends? Well, they've been as silent as a mouse in a library. Not a single message, not even a, "How are you holding up?" Seriously, it's like they vanished into thin air when things got tough. So you know what I did? I hit that block button like it was my job. I realized they were only there for the good times, not the bad. Fake friends. The kind that ghost you when life throws a curveball. So no more pretending they're there for me. If they can't be bothered to check in, they don't deserve a spot in my contacts list. It's time to clean house and surround myself with people who genuinely care, not just when it's convenient for them. I also tried keeping in touch with Theo, but he refused any contact. I respect his decision, even though it's tough. I know many people will say I deserve it, and rightfully so, I think I do. I was stupid, and I took Theo for granted. Right now, I'm focusing on moving forward and rebuilding my life. Thanks for reading and for all the support.